everybody. Welcome to another episode of Classic Gaming Brothers. I'm Seth.
And I'm Zach.
And we are the Classic Gaming Brothers.
Yeah, that's us.
That's right.
That's right.
That's right. What a fun and glorious day.
It's a great day today.
Today is a great day. This is episode 58, which is fun.
5-8.
We are 2 episodes away from episode 60.
We're getting there. We're almost there.
Well, I don't know where we're going, but we're almost there to 60.
We've almost made it.
We did almost make it. We have some exciting episodes planned for the future.
We do. We are closer now to 100 than we were
in our last episode.
That's true. Or than we are to 0, I was going to say. So, if you put us on a chart, we are closer to 100 now than being closer to 0 then.
Ooh.
So Seth, tell me, what have you been playing recently?
So recently I've been playing a fun game where you murder people.
Well, that sounds fun.
Yeah. It's called Hitman 2. I think you might have been playing it recently one time.
Hitman 2?
Yeah, or Hitman.
Well, I was playing Hitman 2 recently, but I was playing the Hitman missions, because in Hitman 2 you can play the Hitman 1 missions.
Because they're one game. Hitman 1 and Hitman 2 is...
It's just like Season 2.
At some point in time, companies decided that it was easier to have people subscribe to something than it was to release something new entirely.
Yeah.
And Hitman is one of those games.
It's true. So
Hitman 2, the second season as it were, started coming out in November of 2018. They are episodic in content, though all of them have been released. There were 2 that were released more recently, though I don't own them, so I haven't played them. Though maybe I'll pick them up. It's a hard thing for me to eat when it's like $15 for one mission.
Yeah.
Those are just rough. Though, so it's a murder simulator. If you're not familiar with Hitman, you play as a hitman.
The exact thing Joseph Lieberman warned us about.
It's true. That was a callback to our episode 47, where we talk about the most controversial episode, Night Trap.
Yeah.
The most controversial video game, Night Trap.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
It was good stuff. Though in Hitman, you play as an assassin who is contracted by a company called The Agency, and you work with your handler named Diana to go around and murder people. It involves costumes and accidental or purposeful murder. The game is structured in a mission format where you load into an open map with a bunch of objectives and sub-objectives, and you have to figure out the best course that you want to do. You could just walk up to your target and shoot them, but that you might encounter guards, and it might not be something that is clean. So you may lose, it scores you on how well you murder these people. Though there was a time, I was playing it around the holidays, the Christmas time, and I was playing the Wet Bandits level where you have to go in and kill Marvin Harv as they are robbing a mansion. I decided that I wanted to see if I could beat it in the quickest way that I could, so I just charged around and shot everybody.
That's how you do it.
No, it was not, because I died. The guards killed me probably about 200 feet from the exit.
Nice.
I almost escaped, but instead I was killed. Which, I mean, based on the strategy that I went into, probably should have been the way that I should have gone.
When I play Hitman, I tend to do things in a way, like, it's one of those games that when I play with a live with your actions mentality. Basically, like, when I'm playing Hitman, if something goes wrong, I just deal with it until I die or, like, get a game over. I won't reset saves or anything. I'm just, like, have to deal with the consequences that of my actions.
I also do that. I kind of play very opportunistically, and I think there was this one time that it was in a car show, and there was like an office for where the car was being made or where the car was being shown, and I killed somebody, like a guard, and I was dragging the guard across the office, and I didn't shut the door, and this other guard walks by the door and just happens to look into the room while he sees me dragging this corpse across the floor. So then he decided that he was going to attack me, so I killed him in the doorway, and that's where all the guards came and attacked me. So then there was just this pile of bodies in the doorway, and I was like, I don't think there's any way of recovering this at all.
Yeah, I've had a couple of games go that way.
And that is good old Hitman.
Nice.
Hopefully, I think season 3 should be coming out in 2021. So
I've been seeing ads for it.
Yeah, if you see an ad for it, it's probably on its way. So, Zach, what have you recently been playing?
I've recently been playing a game that I picked up in the Steam Winter Sale, and that game is Spark the Electric Jester, which is an action platformer that is heavily inspired on some of the best classics from the 16-bit era from both sides of the aisle. So it takes a little bit of Kirby, takes a little bit of Sonic the Hedgehog, well, a lot of Sonic the Hedgehog, a little bit of Rystar, which was a classic Sega game, kind of combines them to kind of provide its own game. And it's a really nice game, really well designed, and I really like the artwork in it. As the name suggests, you play as a character named Spark, who is an electric jester, being that he looks like a jester and has electricity powers. And you go around and you fight bad guys, mostly robots, and you kind of develop new powers and you explore these big open levels. So the game was developed by Philippe Deneluz and his company, Feppard Games. Deneluz actually had previously made Sonic fan games before he created Spark. So I'm familiar somewhat with the Sonic fan games. I've played a few of them. He made one game called Sonic before the sequel, and he made a sequel to that called Sonic After the Sequel, which take place before Sonic 2 and after Sonic 2. But Sonic Before the Sequel takes place after Sonic 1, and Sonic After the Sequel takes place before Sonic 3. But yeah, I like his fan games, and I like Spark the Electric Jester. So your character can move kind of fast, not as fast as Sonic, but pretty fast, and you also have a staff with you where you can shoot like electric bolts of energy, but you can also collect different powers. So there's also like a wind power, and there's like a spike power that you can collect.
What is Spark?
I don't know. Wikipedia calls him an electric jester, which I don't think is an animal, but he kind of looks like a hedgehog, but not. So today we are talking about a game that is close to Seth and my hearts in terms of childhood memories. Seth has talked about it at least a couple of times. Our father talked about it a bit. I haven't really talked about it too much, but it's a game that I really like, and that game is Wolfenstein. Wolfenstein. Specifically, we're gonna focus on Wolfenstein 3D, as there's been plenty of Wolfensteins, but we'll go into the history of the game as well.
Yes, Wolfenstein 3D is great. As Zachary said, Zach and I both have separate but equal memories of Wolfenstein and us playing it. I know for a fact Wolfenstein was one of the first video games that I've ever played on the PC, and was definitely the first-person shooter I played. And it came into our house because our father recovered it from his place of work, which we won't mention. And then I found out that he recovered it. I don't know how I just knew, right? So he brought it home, and like I just had a sixth sense about me where I was like, video games that I could play are in here in this house.
You know what? I wonder if he like left it in the floppy drive or something.
No. He definitely did. No. I took it from the desk.
Okay.
But I think he was playing it, and he like turned it off when I saw him originally playing it, and he was like, "This is a violent game. You shouldn't watch me play it." Like, I think that's what happened. I think he was playing it at one point in time. I saw him play it. He was like, "This is not good for children your age," and like turned it off or like exited out. And then he just put it in the place that I knew where they stored things, which was, we had a roll top desk, and which I'm sure you're familiar with.
I had it in my possession for a period of time.
Yes, I'm the only child who never has gotten. It's always the middle child, because Sarah now has the roll top desk. Anyway, this roll top desk, I snuck in to my parents' bedroom, opened their roll top desk, and took the Wolfenstein floppy disk and got it started on the computer, which I think, based on the age that I'm remembering on, it was probably pretty impressive in its own right. And then I played some Wolfenstein, and I don't know if I saved or anything like that, but yeah, I played Wolfenstein, went around, shot Nazis. It was fun. I enjoyed it.
Nice.
Zach, what about you? What are your memories of Wolfenstein?
I probably played it actually somewhat close to maybe the age Seth is remembering, or maybe I was a little older. But I had a friend back in around the time I was in kindergarten, and he had a copy of Wolfenstein on his family computer. And I remember at the time I was very familiar with Chex Quest, which of course is a Doom clone. And Wolfenstein was the predecessor to Doom, but it does have a lot of similarities to Doom in terms of the like design of the UI and stuff like that. You know, it has that bar at the bottom of the screen where you have your character's face looking back and forth, and it has the ammo counter and such. And I remember my friend turning on Wolfenstein, and I was like, well, this game looks a lot like Chex Quest. And I remember telling him that. I was like, this looks a lot like a game I really like. And he was like, you want to play? And I was like, sure. And that's when I found out that this game wasn't you zorching Flemloids back to their own dimension. It was putting bullets inside of Nazis. So kindergarten age Zach was very excited by this new venture in gaming because my previous experience with games had no blood, and now there was blood. It was a sure thing.
Yeah, I think that's a good age to be introduced to Wolfenstein. Kindergarten. And how old are kids in kindergarten? I don't even know.
It's like what? Maybe
6
or
5?
7 or 8, 6 or 7,
Sure.
6 or 7. I don't remember.
So Zach, why don't you give us the history of Wolfenstein?
Yeah, so to get into the history of Wolfenstein, the original Castle Wolfenstein actually came out in 1981 for the Apple II computer by Muse Software. The game was later ported to MS-DOS, the Atari 8-bit family line of computers, and the Commodore 64. Muse was originally founded by Ed Zarin in August of 1978, and Silas Warner was their first employee. Now, Silas Warner later went on to become the programmer for Castle Wolfenstein. Their first few projects of Muse were non-games. So this was like, they had Supertext, which was a word processor, App Pilot, which was a course writing language.
That's a great, like, knowing that these people will make Wolfenstein, Supertext and App Pilot have like an entirely different, like, I just picture just like World War II and fighting while trying to type.
Oh, that'd be cool. But they decided to get into video games when they saw that market was growing and making money. And some of their early games included a 1978 title, Escape, with an exclamation point, and the 1979 3 Mile Island, which was a simulation game based on the actual 3 Mile Island partial meltdown that occurred in 1979. They were timely.
I have a fun fact about 3 Mile Island.
The game or the event?
The event.
Oh, okay.
Though I kind of want to play the 1979 3 Mile Island simulation game. So our father, back in 1979, he'll clarify this once he listens to this episode with us. But from my memory, my father, during your father as well,
yes,
during 1979, was working for the state government as an intern for the Subcommittee of Environmental Affairs. So 3 Mile Island happened near Connecticut. So when it happened, the state and the people from the island decided that they would tell everybody nearby, especially people who were on the environmental subcommittees of the various state governments. Be like, call the state house, we're having an issue. So our father picked up the phone to be told about 3 Mile Island. So he was one of the first people in Connecticut to be told that 3 Mile Island was happening.
Very exciting. The game was 3 Mile Island. The game was only on Apple II, but maybe I'll send Dad a link to play it on like archive.org and he can relive the memories.
Oh, that's, I'm sure, memories he'd love to relive.
So going back to Muse and their games, their game Castle Wolfenstein, which came out in 81, was a stealth-based action-adventure shooter. You played as an unnamed Allied spy who had been captured and taken to the eponymous Castle Wolfenstein. He's been taken there to be interrogated. So you escape and you kill Nazis. The game is played from a top-down perspective, and the graphics, for being an Apple II game, are incredibly simple. Your characters kind of look like just stick figures, and the enemy characters are also stick figures, but these ones have swastikas on them, so that's how you know they're Nazis. In the game, you could collect items such as food to heal yourself or other collectibles. You can also disguise yourself as an enemy at certain points so that you can get past enemies without having to worry about being attacked or shot at.
Kind of like Hitman.
Yeah, like Hitman, except in the 80s and Nazis.
Did it just put a swastika on your little ASCII graphics?
Yeah, so the graphics for the bad guys I think are colored like yellow because they're supposed to be brown shirts, and I think it just changes you to a brown shirt. Like it just changes you to their sprite.
Oh, okay, that's funny. Is it like ZZT type graphics, or is it a little more advanced than that?
A little more advanced than that. It actually kind of looks similar to the arcade game Berserk.
Oh, okay. These are pretty legit graphics. It's fine. You know what's going on. There's people on them. There's clearly drawn people.
Yeah.
After Castle Wolfenstein was released, a few years later, they decided to make a sequel called Beyond Castle Wolfenstein, which I guess would be a good name for a sequel because it is past Castle Wolfenstein.
It's right next door.
It's nice, right? It's right next door. Castle Wolfenstein 2. It's like the Death Star.
Yeah.
And that was released in 1984 by Muse for the Apple II and the Commodore 64 at the same time this time. This was also quickly ported over to the Atari's 8-bit family line and MS-DOS. The game is pretty much identical to the first game, but it does feature some updates, such as the guards being able to utilize a pass system, where the player will be summoned by a guard to show the correct pass, which varies from floor to floor, almost like a key kind of thing that goes through. So you have to get the key, and if you don't have the right key, the guards would attack you. You could also bribe them if you didn't want to kill them, if you didn't have the correct pass. You could also drag bodies from room to room and to hide them, or you could block passages with the body, which I don't think blocking a passage with the body is hiding it very well.
No.
We can't get down this passage. There's a body. Wow, there must be somebody here.
I'm just imagining like a group of SS troopers walking down a hallway and there's a body lying down and they're like, oh no, we can't go this way. There's a body here. We got to go around.
Maintenance always puts these bodies up whenever they're cleaning the toilets. At its peak, Muse Software did very well. It peaked at $2 million per year in sales at one point in time. However, in 1985, the company did file for Chapter 7 bankruptcy, and in 1987, it was legally disestablished. And at that point in time, since Muse Software owned the Wolfenstein IP, Wolfenstein was over, at least until 1991.
Yeah, that's right. So now, let's jump ahead to a different company. After the success of their Commander Keen series, id Software, which at the time was led by John Romero, John Carmack, and Tom Hall, were looking to create a new 3D game. Their first venture into 3D was Catacomb 3D, which was considered impressive, and Scott Miller of Apogee Software pushed the team to make a 3D shareware game that they could market, as well as also potentially lead to selling. A few ideas were being passed around. One idea was a sci-fi game called It's Green and Pissed, which I think is the best name for a video game.
Yeah, it's pretty good. I like Catacombs 3D, though. Kind of looks like if Wolfenstein 3D and a D&D game got together and had a baby.
It does. And it kind of plays like that too, I'll say. I've played a little bit of it. So now, at one point during these different ideas, John Romero actually suggested that they create a 3D remake of the 1981 Castle Wolfenstein. The team really liked this idea and began working on the project. However, the team wasn't entirely sure that they could even use the name Wolfenstein. They had no idea about the IP's current status nor how much it would cost. So they decided to come up with some alternative titles. One of those titles was How Do You Dusseldorf?
Oh, that's a great one.
There was Castle Hasselhoff, Tank You Very Much, and Deep in Germany.
I feel like How Do You Dusseldorf and Castle Hasselhoff need to be made into games.
I think so too. However, while these names were great, they really did want that Wolfenstein license. So the team contacted Silas Warner, who designed the original 1981 Castle Wolfenstein. And Warner told them that not only was Muse Software no longer in existence, but the trademark for Wolfenstein lapsed in 1986. So they bought it. The current owner of the trademark was some person in Michigan, who I don't think was related to Muse Software. They just owned the trademark.
So in my mind, like, I feel like trademarks should get passed down like royalty, where it just keeps going on. And once there's no one maintaining it, it just gets passed on to successors. It just being like, here you go, this is your trademark now. So maybe one day I'll inherit a trademark.
For fun reference, though, the team actually bought the license for about $5,000. Not bad for the name Wolfenstein. As the project began, John Romero and Tom Hall primarily worked on the gameplay and the aesthetics. Romero was quoted at the time as saying that he wanted the goal to be to mow down Nazis and have the feeling of storming a Nazi bunker to take down Hitler himself. Tom Hall was designing the levels, and he was also adding in collectible objects in the game, such as treasure and food items that you could find scattered around. In Wolfenstein, you play as BJ Blazkowicz, who escapes a Nazi prison in the titular Castle Wolfenstein. You go through level after level of maze-like areas killing Nazis, and in the end, you kill Hitler himself, who was wearing a mech suit.
Oh yeah, that's great.
Yeah, Mecha Hitler. The game is played from a first-person perspective, and you just pretty much kill Nazis that stand in your way. Now, before the game was released, FormGen, which was a company that id Software was working with for distribution purposes, had some concerns. Mostly, they thought the game was a little too Nazi and a little too violent. So, the team decided to make it more violent and more Nazi. In fact, they added in more skeletons, bloody walls, corpses, German screams, and a death cam that would play at the death of every level boss and would replay the death in slow motion in vivid detail. And FormGen said, all right, sounds good, and they sold it as is. They made 0 changes to the game.
Yeah, I feel like John Romero, John Carmack, and Tom Hall were like, what's the feedback? They say it's too violent. Did we hear not violent enough? Well, then we'll fix that.
What's even better is apparently it wasn't even them who initially responded that way. It was the guy from Apogee, who was their like go-between, Scott Miller, who was like, I don't really like these guys at FormGen. Like,
good.
So.
Oh, good old Apogee. So Wolfenstein released in a very similar way that Doom released, being that Doom was also done by id and came after Wolfenstein. So this is kind of how this kind of releasing of how they released Wolfenstein is kind of like why Doom was released in a similar way. And that way was through a shareware version of the first episode, and then you having to buy the entirety of the game. So they say, hey, you get the first episode, you play that, and that's going to have a bunch of levels. And once you finish that episode, you'll want to play the other stories that essentially ship with it. And in order to play those, you have to pay us. And they did that with Doom as well. I'm sure everyone everywhere has played the first story of Doom, but you may not have played the second one. Because the first one is free.
They actually were smart about it too, because not only did they include all the contact information for the complete package in the game, but also they released a retail-only prequel around the same time, so that if you really liked it, you could buy that retail-only prequel.
And this is also in the 90s, so this is where, you get a shareware version, and at the end, it comes up with a splash screen which tells you how to mail in your money to get the disc to play the rest of it. So it's just the kind of fun things that just aren't around anymore. You don't see splash screens anymore that say, like,
no.
Here, write to us and buy this game anymore. So that first episode of the shareware version and the original trilogy was made available on May 5th of 1992, and it sold well. So id Software and Apogee forecasted that their first month of sales would be about $60,000, and their first check came in at $100,000 within the first month. The game sold at a rate of 4,000 copies a month, and by the end of 1993, both Wolfenstein 3D and the prequel, The Spear of Destiny, had sold 100,000 copies. By mid-1994, 150,000 shareware copies had been registered, and id sold another 150,000 copies of The Spear of Destiny at retail. So 300,000 copies of Wolfenstein sold within the span of 2 years.
Yeah, it was great.
Though, despite the massive amount of sales, Wolfenstein was not without controversy. Because there is Nazi symbolism and the main theme, which was a rendition of Horst Wessel-Lied, which is the Nazi anthem, Germany was not, they banned it. Germany is very anti-Nazis, they're very anti-Nazi symbols, so when Wolfenstein is like, hey, this is a game about Nazis, even though it's about killing Nazis, Germany still was like, no. Though, despite the restrictions, German video gamers were still able to get the game via bulletin board systems, which were like old forums.
Yeah, and reportedly, though, I'm not exactly sure the source on this story. I just remember hearing it somewhere. They actually shared it under a false name. So the name Wolfenstein, it's German for wolf stone, and reportedly they called it like Hound Rock or something in German. They just shifted the words around a little bit, and that's what they distributed it as, so that anyone who was like from the German government patrolling the bulletin board systems or something wouldn't catch on.
That's funny. So they just said it like in Pig Latin. Ixnay on the Wolfenstein, eh? And the German government officials like, no, that's not Wolfenstein. I just picture now like in late 90s German bureaucrats using the internet and looking at bulletin board systems trying to find Wolfenstein. They should do a period drama for Netflix.
Yeah, it should be like *Halt and Catch Fire*, but with Germans. Wolfenstein.
The game actually has become one of the more heavily ported games ever. There is a port for the Super Nintendo, the Atari Jaguar, the Mac OS, the 3DO, the Game Boy Advance, the Xbox 360, the PS3, the iOS, the Android, and so on. I think is it on the Switch?
Not yet. But soon it will be.
Yes,
I assume.
It's not like Doom though.
Yeah, Doom is ported to like printers and pregnancy tests.
To this day, because it came out before Doom, it is known as the godfather of first-person shooters. It also spawned a series of sequels and knockoffs. Tom Hall, he left id Software, and he actually worked with Apogee on the Rise of Triad, which was actually going to be a sequel to Wolfenstein 3D, but it turned not to be. Rise of the Triad. The first official sequel to Wolfenstein is Return to Castle Wolfenstein, which was released in November of 2001. And then a sequel in 2009 was released to that, just called Wolfenstein. This sequel was in 2009 was the last game that id Software oversaw as an independent developer, as it was acquired by ZeniMax Media in June of 2009, which then ZeniMax Media is the same people who own Bethesda, who are now owned by Microsoft. So now Microsoft is in charge of Wolfenstein. With the acquisition of id Software by ZeniMax, Wolfenstein was then relaunched again in 2014 with the game called Wolfenstein: The New Order, which is a really good game, and its sequel, Wolfenstein 2: The New Colossus. These games follow the original character of B.J. Blazkowicz in this alternative timeline future where the Nazis won. The most recent title, Youngblood, is a co-op adventure that features Blazkowicz's children as they search for their father in a dystopian 1980s Europe. I really enjoyed Wolfenstein: The New Order.
Yeah.
I played a good portion of Wolfenstein 2: The New Colossus, but Wolfenstein: The New Order was fun because I played it back probably around 2014, 2015-ish. Started playing it. Probably played like 10 hours of it, maybe 12 hours. Then something big came out or something, and I stopped playing it to play the new big game that came out. I don't know what came out, but something did. And I got distracted. And it wasn't until a few years ago that I was like, I never beat Wolfenstein. So then I booted it up and played it and was like, I was really impressed. I was like, why did I not beat this game before? This is a really good game. So I've since beaten Wolfenstein: The New Order. It's a really good successor to the Wolfenstein. They really took care of it. Like, they really developed it right. It is a little stealthy as well as blasty. It's got a little bit of both elements in there, which is fun. And you can kind of play it however you want. If you want to be Blazkowicz blasting and just going and blasting everything, you can do that. If you want to be kind of stealthy and play it kind of like, it's very similar to Dishonored gameplay. That type of like, either you could do stealth or go loud, essentially. They're great games. It's a little... Wolfenstein is weird, straight up. Like, B.J. Blazkowicz reminds me of a lot of Duke Nukem when it comes to how he is and also the kind of ridiculousness that he can go through. So there are some things that happen in Wolfenstein which are a little weird and not realistic.
Especially in the sequel.
Yeah, is the sequel the one where you... Oh, that's the sequel. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's so stupid, but I
was so confused. I thought so. The first one's a little more grounded in reality. The second one definitely is a little. It gets a little silly.
I do like in the second one though. The New Colossus has. So your main characters are in this stolen Nazi airship that kind of is like the Avengers airship, but Nazi themed. And there is an arcade cabinet in the mess hall. And that arcade cabinet is a game called Wolfenstein 3D, where you play as a captured SS soldier in an allied fortress, and you have to go through. It's Wolfenstein 3D but reversed. It's Wolfenstein 3D for the Nazi universe, and it's probably like the closest we'll get to, like, at this time, like having Wolfenstein 3D on the PS4, because they haven't ported Wolfenstein 3D over yet, but New Colossus is available on the PS4, so you can play the complete version of Wolfenstein 3D with everything swapped to be you on the Nazi side.
Before we close on Wolfenstein, I do really like the cover and the level layout. I think it's very iconic Wolfenstein. So the cover to Wolfenstein 3D has Wolfenstein 3D written in like a gothic font with white and red kind of gradients, and has BJ Blazkowicz against a wall holding a pistol, looking angrily at this like unsuspecting brown shirt Nazi walking towards him, and it's all very blue walls.
Yeah, it is.
The walls are like a deep, dark blue, and it's fun. It's just a great. BJ Blazkowicz also looks like he's wearing sweatpants and a sweatshirt.
Yeah, he does. He looks like he's out for a jog.
Yeah, he looks like he almost looks like Tim Allen from the Santa Claus.
Like when he goes to the office, right after he kills Santa,
comes running in. It looks just like that. And then I'm just like looking at screenshots, and I think it's funny that Mecha Hitler that you fight looks like his head's in like a Futurama like fishbowl.
Yeah, it's great.
Well, so that's going to be our Wolfenstein episode. And if you're from Germany, which I know we do have some German listeners,
we're sorry.
We're sorry for our horrible pronunciations.
Also, hopefully this episode doesn't get banned.
That's going to be our Wolfenstein episode. As always, we may eventually come back and revisit.
Well, yeah, we might. Who knows? We might talk about Return to Castle Wolfenstein, as that is an older game. It's also our father's current favorite game. So maybe next time he comes on, he can talk about his time playing Return to Castle Wolfenstein. Also, who knows? Maybe someday I'll stream the original Wolfenstein for the Apple II.
Or you can stream 3 Mile Island.
Or I could stream 3 Mile Island. Ooh, I might get my Apple II running this weekend and make a couple of nice boots.
All right, so that's it. Hopefully you all enjoyed our Wolfenstein episode. We're going to move on to our Buy, Wait, Pass segment. So, Zach, why don't you let us know what you are excited about buying, waiting, or passing on?
Yeah, so the game that I'm really excited for is Resident Evil Village, which is a sequel coming up to Resident Evil 7. Now, the name Resident Evil Village is kind of stylized if you look at it on a poster or something. So in the word village, the letters VILL are highlighted in a different color than the rest of the word, because this is Resident Evil 8. They're being creative with the artwork. So it's Resident Evil 8 Village, but they put the Roman numeric 8 within the actual word village. Resident Evil Village is going to be a sequel to Resident Evil 7. The game supposedly is supposed to take place a few years after the events of the first game. And like Resident Evil 7, it's going to be a first-person horror game. So Resident Evil 7 was a departure from the original Resident Evil games, which were all third-person games. It was the first kind of departure in the regards of really changing up the gameplay dramatically, at least since like Resident Evil 4. So in 7, they switched to a first-person perspective and made it kind of more focused on the horror versus the action, and it looks like Village is a return to that form. So it looks very spooky. I do want to pick it up, so I do want to put it on as a buy, but it's going to be more of a wait for me, because Resident Evil Village is currently only announced for next-gen consoles, and I would need a next-gen console to play it, or probably a better computer, because it looks like it's going to be a very graphically intensive game. So we will see. So at this time, it's going to be a wait, just in regards of necessity of wait. But it's due out in 2021.
Ooh, fun. Yeah, now we could say things are coming out in 2021, and it'll be the year that is appropriate, because this is the new year. I do like the VILL.
They kind of did that with 7 as well, as the name Resident Evil 7 was actually called Resident Evil Biohazard, and the I-L in evil was stylized. Fun fact about Resident Evil, Seth. The name in Japan for the Resident Evil franchise is Biohazard.
Right.
It was changed to Resident Evil when it came over to America. Resident Evil 7 here in America is called Resident Evil Biohazard. In Japan, the game is called Biohazard Resident Evil.
Fun.
Yeah.
I like that. So the game that I have for my Byway Pass is a very exciting game called Gas Station Simulator. It's a game that's being developed for Q1 of 2021 by a company called Drago Entertainment. Drago is working on a number of simulator games, including Gas Station Simulator and also including Airport Contraband. I think you either attempt to find airport contraband or attempt to smuggle airport contraband through. It also is working on other type of simulators such as Food Truck Simulator, Winter Survival Simulator, and Detective Simulators, and even Paparazzi Simulator. It looks like a fun series of games done by this indie developer who has been developing games since 98.
Nice.
And the premise around Gas Station Simulator is you buy an abandoned gas station and your goal is to restore it to its former glory. I don't know what glory a gas station ever has. I never am like, yes, gas stations. They are full of glory. So you buy this old junky gas station and you try to make it into a business. It involves renovating, upgrading, and expanding on any offered services. You know, filling a car full of gas. Maybe have a little convenience store. Gas Station Simulator looks like a lot of fun. A bunch of these Drago games look really cool in theory. So I think I'm going to put it down as a wait. And when these Drago games start to release, maybe I'll buy a few and see how they are. And maybe I'll talk about them because they look fun in concept.
You should do just that.
But as we all know, concept sometimes doesn't lead to execution.
That's true. That's true. Sometimes a game can have a really good concept and be a very bad game.
It's true. Sometimes a game can have a really bad concept and be a really good game.
That's true. That's true.
Well, anyway, sometimes a podcast can have a really good concept and be a really bad podcast.
That's true. Speaking of which, do we want to end this podcast?
We do.
Seth, do you want me to tell you how you can contact us, listen to us, and support us?
Do you want me to tell you, or do you want to tell me?
I'm going to tell you. Do you want me to, though?
Absolutely. I'll take a nap.
All right. So here is the deal. Let's say you want to contact us, listen to us, and support us. There are plenty of ways you can do that. So first off, if you want to contact us, you can go to your email and you can email classicgamingbrothers@gmail.com or classicgamingbrothers@classicgamingbrothers.com or Seth@classicgamingbrothers.com or Zach@classicgamingbrothers.com or info@classicgamingbrothers.com. They all go to the same inbox. So either one of those would work just fine for me. So send us an email and you'll be entered immediately into a chance to win a free video game off of Seth's list of video games, or also to win a voice mailbox message for your home answering machine from our announcer from our Christmas episode, and he'll be very excited to record that for you. Next up, if you want to contact us, there's also through our website. If you go to classicgamingbrothers.com, you can visit our contact form on the website where you can fill out that contact form, put in all your information, and then contact us. Spoiler alert, it goes to our inbox, our Gmail. So Seth will read it and we'll get back to you. But you still get entered into the chance to win a free video game or that voice message on your home answering machine. That is how you can contact us. To listen to us, we are available on pretty much all the podcasting apps, and you're probably listening to us on one of those apps right now. But let's say you want to let your friends know that they can listen to us. Well, that's awesome because that's supporting us. And if you do that, you can tell them that we're on the big three. And that means Spotify, iTunes, and iHeartRadio. We're also available on any other application like Stitcher or CastBox or anything that's kind of like an aggregate like that. So next up, if you want to support us, you can follow us on all of our social medias. We have a Facebook, we have an Instagram, and we have a Twitter. We have a Facebook, we have an Instagram, and we have a Twitter. The Facebook and Instagram are Classic Gaming Brothers. The Twitter is CG Brothers Pod. Be sure to follow us, like us, and ring bells, etc., on all of those. We also have a Twitch, twitch.tv/Classic Gaming Brothers. We have a YouTube channel, youtube.com/Classic Gaming Brothers. We have tons of stuff. It's all great. Pretty much just plug in Classic Gaming Brothers into the item of your choosing will probably show up there. That's not true. Be sure to follow us on all the social medias. Those are all great ways to get in touch with us and also to support us. Now, if you really want to support us, the best thing you can do is by listening to our podcast, which you're doing right now. So great job, and thank you for supporting us. But another thing you can do is you can tell 3 friends. Let your friends know that you really like this podcast. You want other people to listen to this podcast, because if you let other people know that you want them to listen to this podcast, then they will listen to this podcast, and thus you are supporting us. Look at that. That's how it works. Now, also, you can go to our store. You don't have to, but we do have some merchandise available on our store, and Seth promises this year that he will put up some more merchandise. We will see, but he said he would, and I'm going to hold Seth to that. That is how you can contact us, listen to us, and support us. And I'm pretty sure that's the end of this podcast, because I can't think of anything else, unless Seth can.
Don't play games like my brother.
And don't play games like my brother.
I've been Seth.
And I've been Zach.
And we have been the Classic Gaming Brothers.
That's right.
I think the best thing that I learned in this episode was that there is a video game reenacting 3 Mile Island.
Yeah. That'll be our next episode. No, it won't.
No, it won't. Our next episode is going to be even more exciting than that.